There's a corner of my back porch where the mosquitoes don't land. Same humid July evening. Same standing water in the rain barrel 40 feet away. Same bare arms. Everywhere else on that porch, you'd be slapping at your ankles within 2 minutes. But in that one corner, near a beat-up clay pot, nothing touches you. People assume I sprayed something. I didn't. There's a plant in that pot, and when you brush against it, it gives off a smell that mosquitoes physically steer away from. Here's the part that surprises most people. It's not citronella. The thing in those tiki torches and those little green coils. The smell we've all been trained to associate with keeping bugs away. That's mostly theater. A study out of the University of Guelph in Ontario tested the so-called citronella plant and found it did essentially nothing to repel mosquitoes in the field. The smell we trust the most is one of the weakest things you can use. The smell that actually works is one almost nobody reaches for anymore. And the reason you've never heard of it is honestly kind of annoying. It works too well. It grows for free. And there's no patent on a weed. I'm not going to tell you this is some new discovery. It's not. Burning aromatic plants to drive off biting insects is one of the oldest tricks humans have. The earliest confirmed evidence of people deliberately burning fragrant plant material comes out of ancient Egypt. Around 3000 BCE, the Greeks and Romans documented using plant smoke against pests in their crops and homes. Native peoples across North America burned sagewort and rubbed mugwort on their skin. The Anglo-Saxon root of the word mug actually meant gnat. Every culture that lived close to standing water and biting insects landed on the same answer, independently. Certain plants, when you release their oils into the air, make a space that mosquitoes avoid. That kind of convergence, showing up on 3 continents with no contact between them, doesn't happen by accident. It happens because it's true. So let me get into what the smell actually is, why it works on a mosquito's brain, and how you grow it for the price of a packet of seeds. First, you have to understand how a mosquito finds you in the first place, because the whole trick depends on jamming that system. A female mosquito, and it's only the females that bite. They need the protein in blood to develop their eggs. Hunts in stages. The first thing she locks onto is carbon dioxide. Every time you exhale, you send out a plume of CO2, and she can detect it from up to about 100 feet away. That plume is what wakes her up and points her in your direction. Researchers at the University of California, Riverside found that once she's riding that CO2 trail, her sensitivity to your other signals sharpens. She starts homing in on the lactic acid in your sweat, on a compound called octanol that we give off, on your body heat, even on the visual contrast of your body against the background. It's a layered system. CO2 gets her close. Skin chemistry and heat bring her in for the landing. Here's where the plant compounds come in. And here's what most people get wrong. The good repellent plants don't poison the mosquito, and they don't really mask your scent the way people imagine, like hiding behind a stronger smell. What they actually do is interfere with her ability to read those incoming signals at all. The aromatic molecules bind to the same odor receptors she uses to detect you. It's less like throwing a blanket over your scent, and more like jamming a radio frequency. She's still flying, but the signal that says, warm-blooded meal, this direction gets scrambled into static, so she drifts off and looks elsewhere. Now, the specific molecule that does this best. There's a plant in the mint family, Nepeta cataria. You know it as catnip, the stuff that makes house cats roll around like they've lost their minds. The compound responsible for that effect is called nepetalactone. And in 2001, entomologists at Iowa State University ran nepetalactone head-to-head against DEET, the gold standard chemical in nearly every drugstore repellent. Their finding was that nepetalactone was roughly 10 times more effective at repelling mosquitoes than DEET. By weight. Let that sit for a second. The compound in a plant your grandmother might have grown for the cat outperformed the chemical the entire repellent industry is built around. That is not a typo, and it wasn't a fringe study. It was presented at a national meeting of the American Chemical Society. You already know this kind of plant chemistry, even if you've never named it. Think about crushing a tomato leaf between your fingers, and that sharp green smell that clings to your skin. Think about rosemary thrown on a grill, or the bite of fresh mint when you tear a sprig. Those sharp, volatile oils are the plant's own defense system. Chemicals it evolved to discourage insects from eating it. We grow these plants for our dinner and our gardens, and completely overlook that the same oils protecting the leaf will protect us. If we know how to release them, and that word, release, is the whole game. Here's the one thing people get wrong. And it's the reason most folks who try this give up disappointed. They buy a mosquito-repelling plant at the garden center, set the pot on the patio, and expect it to work like a force field just by sitting there. It doesn't. A leaf sitting still holds its oils locked inside. The molecules that repel mosquitoes are volatile, meaning they have to get into the air to do anything. And an undisturbed plant releases almost none of them. You have to break the leaf. You have to crush it, bruise it, rub it, or burn it. That's the step everyone skips, and it's the only step that matters. Let me tell you how I figured this out, because reading it and doing it are two different things. A few summers back, I had catnip and lemongrass growing in pots, planted mostly because they were cheap and hard to kill. One evening around dusk, sitting on the back step with the mosquitoes starting to find my ankles, I grabbed a handful of catnip leaves out of frustration and just crushed them between my palms. The smell came up immediately. Sharp, herbal, a little skunky underneath. Not unpleasant. Almost like strong cold tea with something wild in it. I rubbed the bruised leaves on my forearms and ankles. Within a minute or two, the landing stopped. Not perfectly. Not like I was sealed in glass. But the difference was obvious enough that I sat out there another hour testing it on myself like an idiot. Crushing more leaves every 20 minutes. The lemongrass did the same thing with a brighter, cleaner citrus smell. That's the night it stopped being a thing I'd read and became a thing I knew. So here's how you actually do it. The plants you want are catnip first, for the nepetalactone. Then lemongrass, which is loaded with citronella, the real compound that those weak citronella products are a pale imitation of. Except here, you're getting it fresh and concentrated. Lemon balm is another one. Easy to grow to the point of being invasive, full of the same citrus-scented oils. And lemon eucalyptus, if your climate allows it, contains a compound that the CDC actually recognizes as an effective repellent ingredient. Catnip seeds run a couple of dollars a packet. A lemongrass start might cost you $4 or $5 and then multiplies on its own. You're looking at maybe $10 total to grow a lifetime supply. To use them, the simplest method is direct. Pick a small handful of leaves. Crush and roll them hard between your hands until they're bruised and the oil is on your skin. Then rub that directly on exposed areas. Ankles, wrists, the back of the neck, behind the knees, wherever the skin is thin and the blood is close. Reapply every 20 to 30 minutes, because plant oils evaporate faster than synthetic chemicals. For an area rather than your body. The old method still beats everything. Take a bundle of dried lemongrass or catnip stems, and let them smolder in a fire pit or a heat-proof dish. The smoke carries those volatile oils across the whole space, which is exactly what the Egyptians and the Romans were doing thousands of years ago. If you want something gentler, simmer a pot of the crushed leaves in water on a low burner, and let the steam fill an enclosed porch. Now, one honest note, because I'm not going to sell you a miracle. These plants are genuinely effective, but they are not a sealed barrier, and they will never match DEET for sheer staying power. DEET's whole advantage is that it lasts for hours from a single application. Crushed plant oil might give you 20 to 40 minutes before you need to refresh it. A strong wind will pull the protective cloud away from you. And if you're standing in a serious infestation, dusk near a swamp in mid-July, you're going to feel the difference between fewer bites and no bites. This reduces mosquito interest a great deal. It does not make you invisible. If you're heading somewhere with malaria or dengue risk, you use real repellent. Full stop. For a backyard evening, a porch, a campsite, a garden, this is plenty. Here's the part that should make you a little annoyed. Walk into any hardware store, and the repellent aisle is a wall of bottles. $8 to $12 each. Plus the candles and the coils and the plug-in foggers. The global insect repellent market runs well over $11 billion a year. A plant that grows from a $2 seed packet and reseeds itself forever has no place in that economy. Nobody can build a brand around, go crush the weed in your yard. There's no recurring revenue in a perennial. A solution that costs nothing and refills itself is, from a marketing standpoint, completely useless. So it quietly fell out of the conversation. And citronella, which barely works but smells like the idea of bug spray, and comes in a sellable bottle, took its place in our heads. That's the real story here. And it's bigger than mosquitoes. Somewhere in the last 100 years or so, as the store shelves filled up with branded products for every small problem, a whole layer of practical plant knowledge stopped getting passed down. Your great-grandmother almost certainly knew which leaves to crush by the door in summer. She didn't know the word nepetalactone, And she didn't need to. She knew it worked because her mother showed her. And her mother had it shown to her, back and back through the generations who lived before there was anything to buy. We didn't lose this knowledge because it was wrong. We lost it because it became inconvenient to sell. I don't know what brought you here tonight. Maybe you've got a kid who comes in from the backyard covered in welts, and you're tired of coating them in chemicals. Maybe you've got a tomato garden you can't enjoy after sundown. Maybe you're heading out camping next weekend, and you'd rather not pack a can of something you can't pronounce. Or maybe you just like knowing how things actually work. And you ended up here past midnight following one link to another. Doesn't matter which one it is. The plant works the same either way. And now you know the part everyone leaves out. That you have to crush it. $2, a sunny windowsill, and a handful of bruised leaves at dusk. That's the whole thing. That's it for today. I hope you learned something you didn't expect to. And I'll see you in the next one.